Hi, I'm Dr. Singhania from Singhania Clinic. As you know, we are moving our clinic from Dubai Healthcare City to Jumeirah Lake Towers. And in the interim period, I'm sitting every day at Mediclinic City Hospital in DHCC. I'd like you to subscribe to the Singhania Clinic YouTube channel for more videos. And if you like our Facebook page for all updates regarding the move, ask us questions in the comments section below. And do let us know what you want to hear about next. Today I'm going to be talking about how to help your child do better in school. School is very stressful for both parents and children, especially in the early days. And I would like to cover the various topics like what impacts your child's school performance, things about diet, water, sleep, exercise, and how it is so important for your child's brain. Very importantly, relieving anxiety in your child, helping them to succeed and not punishing them for failure. I think that's a really important motto for all parents and teachers to have. There's a little bit on how to help your child do homework, but I will be doing a full webinar later on just homework. And finally, picking up learning problems early on. Education in the 21st century is the only path to success, and this is the common feeling we all have, and we pass on that pressure to our children. The amount of work in schools has tripled since 1980, and as a result, rates of victimization, depression, anxiety are rising, especially in underachievers. I would like to start with a very broad perspective. Why children go to school? I think we need to keep that in mind when we look at our children's school report, because school is not just learning the 3 R's, which is reading, writing, and arithmetic. It's preparing your child for life. It's helping the child become independent, learning to solve problems, learning social skills. They have to become socially literate to know how to interact with other people, how to get what they want, how to share, how to take turns. They need to learn about other cultures, especially in this part of the world where we have more than 80 nationalities. School also prepares the child to develop his personality, identity, and also, which we often forget, physical capabilities. The end result is we want a curious, confident child who enjoys learning. So let's talk about development, child development and its impact on learning. We do need to remember that children develop normally at different rates. What does that mean? Child development means that children follow a certain pattern of development. This is called milestones, and they have typically age ranges. However, remember the word range. For example, a child may walk between 8 to 14 months, and this is considered normal. So it doesn't mean if a child who is walking at 13 or 14 months is late to walk. Another important point is all development is interlinked. I think in schools these days we often tend to neglect the physical activities, and we forget how important physical exercise impacts our learning to write, to learn, and of course remember. Another very important impact is with language development, which I'll be talking about later. I'd like to talk a little bit about Piaget's cognitive developmental stages. I know there is a little controversy as to the exact ages, but the stages are more or less the same. Piaget was a developmental pediatrician from Switzerland, and he talked a lot about cognition in children. We'll start with the preoperational stage, which is the second stage and starts from age 2 to 7. Now this stage is most important in terms of learning language. And because language is symbolic, that means language represents things or events or objects. This is the time when children develop symbolic understanding. They learn to manipulate symbols. They learn to represent objects and events in different ways. The doll play and pretend play and all this occurs at this age, and it really impacts the use of language. But it's important to remember that children cannot use logic at this age. They cannot transform, combine, or separate ideas. So even, a 2-year-old we can understand and many parents accept it, but a 7-year-old and a 6-year-old may still have the same problem. So how do you define this stage? There's something called centration. That means the child understands or focuses only on one aspect of a situation at one time. So it may look at only the color or the shape or one aspect. They cannot think about all the different aspects at the same time. Children at this age are also egocentric. And what does that mean? It means they see things from their point of view. They cannot see another person's point of view. And this is not just about viewpoints. It's also how they view an object. So if they are seeing the front part of the object and you are seeing the back part of the object, they cannot understand that. They think you're still seeing the front part of the object. That means you are seeing what he is or she is seeing. Another characteristic is animism. Animism means objects have feelings, and I think cartoon has Walt Disney have really banked on this because, I think even now we feel objects may have feelings. And artificialism, things like clouds are man-made. Now this is a picture which shows how a child has difficulty separating different aspects. So in the top part of the picture, you see a child who's looking at 2 identical cups of water. It has the same amount of water. Now the adult pours 1 glass of water into a tall glass. And then when you ask the child the first time, is this equal? And the child says yes. And then when you pour the same amount of water in a tall glass and you ask the child which is more, they will point to the tall glass. They haven't understood that it's the same amount of water, it's just in a taller glass. And this is a little cartoon which I really liked, and I put it in. Hammy, I told you to get in the tub. And the kid says, I did. So mom says, did you bother to fill the tub with water, take off your clothes and wash yourself? And the kid says, but you didn't tell me to do that. So this is looking at one aspect at a time. And we need to remember this. Then we come to the concrete operational stage, which is a 3rd stage, and it's in the middle childhood from ages 7 to 11 years. Now this is the time when logical thought starts to develop. The children start becoming organized and rational. However, it's important to remember that they can become more logical only about concrete and specific things. They still struggle with abstract ideas. They can focus on many parts of a problem or situation, but mainly in the concrete stage. So they can look at the shape and size and color at the same time, but not in the abstract ideas. So they are developing logic. They have something called reversibility. That means a Labrador is a dog, is an animal, and an animal can be a dog and can be a Labrador. This back and forth thing is hard for kids younger than 7. Conservation, what we talked about last time, they can start seeing things in different aspects of things. And they start becoming more sociocentric, so they start seeing other people's point of view. And this is the age when friendship and all starts to build up more. This is another slide which talks about the concrete operational stage. Like I said, the fundamentals of logic. They can start sorting objects. So remember, this is at 7 years, yeah? They start sorting objects, classifying objects, and they understand that physical quantities do not change based on the arrangement. There's a lovely video which you can see on the website where a child has 5 blocks and there's another line of 5 blocks on top, and if you put them exactly in the same length, they feel it's the same. But when the blocks are increased, in the sense the space between the blocks is increased, the child thinks that those 5 blocks on the top, which are now occupying a longer space, are actually more than the blocks below. But this understanding comes after the age of 7. So this little picture down shows you that a ball of clay, if it is rolled into a long cylinder, the amount stays the same. Then finally we come to the formal operational stage. This is from the ages 12 years to adulthood. In this, the child starts thinking in abstract manner. They can manipulate ideas in their head, and so they can do mathematical calculations, they can think creatively, they can use abstract reasoning, they can imagine the outcome of particular actions. If I do this, these are the consequences. They understand more deeply problem solving. The younger kids have more black and white. They cannot really think about different ways to solve problems. And kids above the age of 12 start having more systematic thinking. However, as they go on from age 12 to adulthood, they still have problems with abstract. And also, they are not completely sociocentric. So the point I'm trying to make is, keep your child's age in mind. Don't try to push information in your child's head. Remember what is the stage of their development, and remember it's a range of development. Now I want to talk a little bit about language and learning. I've worked in Dubai for more than 20 years, and one of the biggest problems I find is language of learning. We often in schools, we don't focus so much, especially in the younger classes, on verbal language. We talk about the reading and the writing and numbers, numeracy and literacy, but not oral verbal language. And language impacts the whole development of the child. Now you know that there are more than 114 Indian languages. There are more than 14 Arabic dialects. And because we have more than 80 to 90 nationalities, we have kids from Korea, China, from all the European countries. We have so their mother tongues are different. Whilst they're learning, often they're studying in English. The language is the key to learning. Language aids understanding of concepts. Language aids understanding of instructions, and language aids reading comprehension and writing. I had a child who came to me at age 9. She was extremely anxious. She wouldn't go into school and she would cry. What happened was, and she studied and studied and studied, but she could never do well. The problem was the child could read very well. The child was intelligent, but the child spoke mainly in Arabic. So what she read in English, she couldn't understand. And that impacted her whole education. So language can affect a child socially, academically, emotionally, and behaviorally. And we must remember even mild disorders can have long-term effects. There may be maladaptive trajectory throughout life, and good oral language is critical for school readiness. So please do focus on your child's oral language. In 1980, Snyder predicted that any child who was language delayed, even mildly, so suppose your child started talking only at age 2 years, that's a mild language delay. So they can become learning disabled. So they may have problems with dyslexia and dysgraphia later on. So help your child express themselves in their language of education. So talk to them, discuss with them, have conversations with them, debate with them, and that will really help them to use language of education. Now, learning occurs best when these are the building blocks of learning, and I want to focus on the foundation. The foundation blocks include attention control, that is, emotion and behavior, self-esteem, and learning environment. And if a child has problems, say in all the processing blocks like visual, auditory, or motor, or language and images, if they are more confident, if they are not suffering from anxiety, they have attention, and their learning environment is supportive, then they can overcome many other problems. So these four are very important. Now I want to talk a little bit about anxiety and how anxiety and worry can reduce learning. This is a picture of our brain. The midbrain is the earliest evolutionary part of our brain, which controls our heart rate, blood pressure, respiratory rate, or breathing. Then comes the limbic system, which is seen in many of the more evolved animals, and they look at emotions and feelings. And then you come to the neocortex, which is a newer part of the brain, most developed in the humankind. Now, if the limbic system is overwhelmed, if the emotions are overwhelming, then the neocortex shuts down. That means the child cannot think, analyze, or learn. So we have to be very careful that the child is not anxious. So when does learning occur best? When the child is actively involved in a given task. It's not just teaching a child something, but involving the child, engaging the child. And it's a joint enterprise between the adult and the child. And there is good rapport. That means there's a lot of positive regard and respect, not only towards the teacher, but also the teacher towards the student. And not just teacher, but also the parent. Now, what can anxiety do to learning? Anxiety causes distraction with irrelevant tasks. This results in an increased effort. That means it reduces their efficiency to learn because they are thinking of other things, they are getting distracted. So how do we reduce anxiety? I like this Parents 101 on reducing anxiety. First of all, reduce your own anxiety because anxiety is very contagious. So if the parent is anxious, the child will get anxious as well. So be calm. Do not put pressure on your child. Positivity is the key. If your child is not able to do certain things persistently, then you remember that there may be a problem and it's better to look and solve the problem rather than think that the child is just being negative. Of course, don't compare him or her to others, and it's very important to know it's not how fast we do something, but how well we do something and the quality of the work that matters. These are 6 ways you can reduce worry, especially now when the school is just beginning. This is the time when children become very anxious. They're going to go into school after a long summer vacation. They're going to meet new teachers. They'll have to make new friends and learn new things. So one thing is to have routine. Prepare early and thoroughly. Prepare them. So let them know where the school is, where their classes are going to be. Prepare them with all the subjects they may have to learn. Have some play dates with their classmates early on before school really starts. And even when school is going on, preparation is the key. So if you're well prepared the night before, then you're less likely to be worried the next day. It's very important to listen to their worries. There's something which I teach in my parent effectiveness is active listening. Often when a child is worried and they say things, we say, no, it's okay, don't worry, it's going to be all right. So instead of just pushing their worries away, it's better to listen to their worries because that will abate them. Also discuss the positives of school. Talk about what is good about school. Oh, you'll meet your friends and it'll be such fun. You'll have extracurricular activities. Another way of being positive is wake them up with a compliment. Wake them up and say something nice. And the same way, give them specific jobs which are using their gifts and talents. You can even tell their teacher that, he's really good at this IT stuff. So maybe the teacher can help him, help his self-esteem by getting him to do some of the things in class on IT. Now, as a pediatrician, I'd like to tell you how important health is to learning. So what is the impact of diet? Studies have shown that high-fat refined diet reduces BDNF in the brain and thus impairs learning, especially memory. What is BDNF? It's a kind of chemical in the brain which helps and promotes development of the brain cells, development of memory and all that. Similarly, omega-3 fatty acids found in salmon, walnuts and kiwi improve memory. They also improve improve the quantity of BDNF. Folic acid found in spinach, yeast and orange juice prevents depression and cognitive impairment. So being sure that your child is eating a well-balanced diet, giving supplements, avoiding junk food is really important. This is a slide on iron deficiency. Now, iron deficiency is different from iron deficiency anemia, and iron deficiency can cause fatigue, recurrent infections, it can reduce appetite, it can affect the child's attention, it can cause restlessness and tantrums, and most important, especially in young children, breath-holding spells. Now, this is the graph on the right side of the slide shows you that there were two groups of children with a hemoglobin of 10 gram%, which is mild anemia. One part was given iron supplements and one part wasn't. The IQ was done at 0, that before iron was given, and then it was done at T2 when one group was given iron and the other wasn't, and they repeated the IQ testing and they found at least 10 to 15 point difference. So, breakfast is crucial. High protein shakes with almond or camel milk, eggs, lentils, these are important. Snacks, important to maintain steady blood sugar levels. So they shouldn't have long periods of being hungry and having, a fistful of nuts or things to eat in school rather than giving them cakes and chocolates. Avoiding junk food, artificial foods, corn, sugar, preservatives, because these all impair memory, they reduce BDNF. Try to increase organic foods. Eat 5 portions of vegetables and fruits a day and ensure plenty of water. So let's come to water. How does water affect cognition? Brain is 75% water, and even 1 to 2% dehydration affects your cognition. It can affect motor functioning, memory, impair attention, cause fatigue, reduce math abilities. And this is all based on research, mind you. Children and adolescents are at greater risk than adults. So seeing that your child drinks a good amount of water, at least a liter a day, depending on the age of the child, adults and adolescents at least 2 to 3 liters a day is important. Let's talk about sleep. I know a lot of kids think sleep is for the weak, but sleep is really important because that is when the brain recovers. It's all the toxins are removed, the brain recovers. Sleep deprivation reduces the ability to learn and lowers academic performance. Studies have shown that kids who are sleep deprived show ADHD-like behaviors. That means they're distractible, they cannot learn, and they cannot pay attention. It affects both declarative and procedural learning, which means what is and how something is done. So the whole gamut of learning is affected by lack of sleep. And remember, the prefrontal cortex, which is a front part of our cortex, which is most important with analysis, reasoning, etc., is most vulnerable to sleep deprivation. Most students from schools and universities suffer from sleep deprivation, as was reported in many studies. You know that your child travels an hour or so in the school bus, may not have had time for breakfast, is tired, and that does not make good learning environment. These are the sleep recommendations. Toddlers should sleep at least 12 to 14 hours. 3 to 5-year-olds, the preschoolers from 11 to 13 hours, and 5 to 12-year-olds 10 to 12 hours. So what is sleep hygiene? Have a good bedtime routine, a light snack, maybe a bath, maybe quiet time, not some exciting TV shows or exciting games. Get them into their pajamas, bedtime story. Remember, no EMF before sleep. EMF is the electromagnetic fields which are emitted by all your iPads and laptops and telephones. And comfortable environment is extremely important, so not too cold, not too hot, etc. Then we come to exercise on learning. Now, it's not just that they develop muscles and they are fit and nimble. Exercise improves brain function and cognition at the cellular, organic, and behavioral level. Child is recommended 20 to 40 minutes of vigorous exercise, and 11-year-olds improve their brain function, math skills, and IQ scores by 3 to 8 points. So when you do vigorous exercise, the blood supply to the brain improves. Half hour of aerobic exercise a day increases the volume of prefrontal cortex and temporal cortex. That means your brain changes. Half an hour of aerobic exercises changes your brain, improves learning and memory. And this is a CDC recommendation. CDC is, as you know, the Center for Disease Control in the US. And it recommends at least 1 or 3 times a week for children from 6 to 17 years. This should include aerobic for most of the 60 minutes, like biking, running, muscle strengthening for some of the time, and bone strengthening, like jumping and skipping. A little bit on homework solutions. Now that terms in schools have started, the homework headache has begun. Forgotten items, the chaos that will come after 3 o'clock, spending hours hovering. Have you done your homework? Finish your homework. Come on. The child is begging, please, I don't want to study. Maybe later, procrastination. So how can you help? One is, don't overdo for the child. Don't do his homework for him, and yet do not just leave him to himself. So give them the big picture. Explain what the whole situation is. Explain the concepts. And then let them do the rest. So step back a little to let them step up. But again, don't just move completely away. In some cases, routine helps. So the child knows as soon as he comes home, he washes, has a little snack, changes his clothes and does his homework, and then he can go and play. But other kids don't like that, especially those who are on the ADHD spectrum. So we have to think about creative solutions. Listening to music, kids can, this is also called white noise, and it can help them focus and concentrate better. Fidgeting, like tapping on a sponge. Now, tapping on a sponge doesn't make a noise and doesn't irritate others. So there is this very new fidget machine of fidgety cubes or something that's available. Those which don't make a noise can help. Chewing helps, especially chewing because that helps to improve the brain, blood circulation and memory. Sometimes sitting under the dinner table or in a closet, or even doing homeworks in different parts of the home, like in the garden or the park, can help them. The most important, motivate them. It's not bribing, remember, it's motivation. So yes, you can give them a dirham for doing their page of math, or you can give them, say, 15 minutes of iPad time. So motivation is important. The final point I want to make is about early learning difficulties. When a child is struggling, because see, learning difficulties does not necessarily mean the child is not intelligent. Some of the most intelligent children may struggle Maybe they struggle with ADHD or attention deficit without hyperactivity. They may have dyslexia, reading problems, writing problems, and of course language impairment. So early recognition is very important. I've had parents, they move their child from one school to another thinking that the school is at fault or there is something wrong with the way the teachers are teaching, instead of trying to admit and find out what is actually happening. Because remember, learning problems does not mean your child is not able. I've seen some very, very bright children with superior intelligence who have difficulty with reading or writing. Early intervention is the key. They respond to learning difficulties early, may prevent learning problems occurring later on, and prevent a school failure. So to summarize, how can you help your child do better? First of all, have a broad perspective. Remember physical health and nutrition. So treat the allergies, give good breakfast, plenty of water, high protein snacks. Remember the importance of exercise and sleep. Remember they need to do at least 3 hours a week of aerobic exercises. Please be sure that your child is doing age appropriate and developmental appropriate work. Don't push the child. I remember in the past, now it's not so much, but in the past schools used to believe that the more work and the harder the work, better the schools are. And that's totally incorrect. Very important to reduce anxiety with learning, because anxiety can impact learning in such a major way. Strengthen the language of education. Remember, language is the basis of all learning. Early diagnosis and intervention. Do not criticize, do not punish, give support, give boundaries and routine. And I hope you can help your child do better at school. Thank you. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos and leave your questions in our comment box. Thank you.